Darabont. That's the weirdest camera stand I've ever seen. But it works.
It works. It gets the angle just right.
We are trying to hew to the spirit of what he has created. So to have the creator as part of the process is comforting, to say the least, and of value. You know. Plus, I want him excited about it too. You know, I don't ever want to do anything that just pisses off the guy who created the thing I've adapted. So
that kind of means you're doing a bad job, right? In and of itself, it's kind of like, well, I got this a little wrong.
In and of itself, but you know, it's been actually really fun to be able to call Robert on occasion. You haven't heard from me lately because I've been in the editing room like a maniac. But
I hear from you in the sense that I get edits of episodes.
You get edits of episodes. We send him every pass of every show, and you know, so he can look at it. Wait till you see these things actually color timed. Like the image looks beautiful. It's like the washed out, avid shit that you've been looking at. It's going to blow your mind. It's actually really good looking.
Good.
But I remember the day. You know what my favorite conversation with Robert was? We were just really starting to kind of prep this thing, and I had written the first two, and I had this question. I had to ask him, and I got on the Skype or the phone or something with him, and I said, okay, the world of The Walking Dead, your comic book, these characters, can Rick walk into a video store and pick up Romero's Dawn of the Dead, for example?
Right.
Does the DVD for Dead Alive exist? Does zombie exist as a concept in this world? Or are these creatures that, is this thing that's happening unique and fresh to this? Right. And I kind of had my theory, and he gave me the exact answer I was hoping you'd give me. You remember what you said?
I don't at all.
Yeah. Oh, you don't remember? Okay. He said, no, I don't think, in this world you could talk about, ghosts and witches and vampires and ghouls, but the idea of a zombie, a living dead creature, a person that comes back and is hungry for human flesh, doesn't exist in this world. This should be a unique, to their perceptions, a unique occurrence. And he said the same thing that I was feeling, which is, let this be fresh to them. That's why we never use the word zombie in the TV series, because it doesn't exist as a pop cultural thing. Right. If you could walk into Barnes & Noble and buy the, Max Brooks book.
Right, then they'd all be okay.
It would just be, it would just be weird,
The entire show would fall apart the second someone said, it's just like Day of the Dead, right?
Right, exactly.
What? Like,
I know
what are you
it
talking
would be too
about?
self-referential, like the
Way too
Scream movies
inside
were doing
baseball.
parody of those kind of things.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly. We didn't want it to be self-referential, and it would be so impossible not to if Max Brooks had published his books, in this world. If Romero had made those movies,
Okay, now the show has the advantage of building from your body of work. Are there lessons you learned from the stories along the way, or some complaints readers would have, like, who was taking care of Rick at the hospital, that the show builds in or avoids?
Well, there are things like that I think are boring. And, obviously there was a way that he was able to survive in that hospital bed. I imagine that things went to hell and there were people that were still taking care of him up until the last minute, and then they abandoned him shortly before he woke up. Like, there's obviously ways that it all makes sense and everything. But it's just, and the show is doing a very good job of this too. There are things that could be said, and there are things that could explain things more, but that stuff is boring. And so you want to just start at the most interesting moment and just kind of move on. And that's the way that the show does it.
And there's one thing you actually discover if you've been a screenwriter for a while. The audience always needs just a little bit less explanation than you think they do. And this is the one thing you would discover in the editing room too, where you think, you put the scripts in front of the camera and you think, oh, they're absolutely going to need to know this. They're absolutely going to need to know this scene or this part of this scene or this line of dialogue. And once it's in front of you, you go, they don't need to know that. Get that, cut that out. Get that out of there. Paste this thing up because the audience intuits. you know, a tremendous amount. There's a shorthand that's developed with an audience that you know, you don't have to explain everything, which is fantastic. You don't have to show everybody driving up, parking their car, getting out, walking across the street, and going up and knocking on the door, for example, to know that the guy came over and now they're having a conversation. You can just cut into the scene. You know, you look at some of the older movies, 30s, 40s, everybody's always getting out of the car, walking across the street, knocking on the door. It's madness.
I didn't see that doorknob turn. How did that door open?
I saw you covered in a pile of zombies, I think, recently.
Those bodies are heavy. Way more than I thought they'd be.
Are you playing a zombie?
No, I didn't want to just because I feel it's gratuitous. I can't stand cameos, to be honest with you. I just don't like seeing. Anytime I see Peter Jackson in The Lord of the Rings, I'm like, oh, there he is again. Iconic. So it's just a pet peeve of mine, and I just didn't want to do it. You know, I asked to play Rick, they didn't let me. So I was pouting a little, and so I refused to be a zombie.
That's the same reason I've never done any cameos in any of my stuff.
I'm so glad. I didn't know that for sure, and I was like,
I'm a
I hate cameos. It's awful.
It's Darabont's favorite thing. Vampires.
Well, I actually love cameos.
I'll go if another director asks me. I'm happy to show up. I did a few things in Entourage, which was great fun, and a little thing in a John Carpenter movie. You know,
I would be a zombie in a Romero movie. I just don't want to do it in this.
The self-referential word comes up again. It would be too, you know.
Frank, did they get you one of
I
those
find it
posters?
distracting.